The radical left wing has been waging war against family values for quite some time. Many social conservatives see the feminist movement and the LGBT movement as a part of the left-wing effort to destroy the very concept of the nuclear family. It's pointless to argue whether or not this is the case, since many left-wing groups have openly stated that the abolition of the family is one of their goals. So I'll begin by briefly discussing their motivation behind this, and then explain why I think they're deeply misguided. The rationale behind the war on the family is well articulated in an old Illuminati document. What I'm about to read is a footnote to a revised presbyter degree. This is an authentic, internal Illuminati document, which you can read for yourself in The Secret School of Wisdom, The Authentic Rituals and Doctrines of the Illuminati. It reads, "With respect to the greater whole, states and nations are nothing more than large, further subdivided families, are not the end, but a means, are not the final step, but only an elevated step, in the great ladder of nature, that the human race shall climb to reach its dignity and greatness. If you want tranquility and unity to reign among men and the nations of this earth, then lessen the narrower ties and interests that unite them in one that is higher and more universal. For the higher it is, the more the cause of discord will dissipate." I think this actually represents the view of quite a few radical Enlightenment thinkers who lived during roughly the same time period when the Illuminati was formed. But I think this view has mutated over the last couple of centuries into something that even radical Enlightenment thinkers such as Weishaupt would be horrified by. And I think this mutation is the expression of an internal contradiction, which strikes me as glaringly obvious. I like his metaphor of a ladder, and I think he's right, at least up until this point. But with a ladder, the lower rungs are necessary in order to reach the higher rungs. I also think Weishaupt is correct in seeing nationalism as a step toward a kind of international human family. But it's important to note that although he sees nationalism as a means to this end, and not an end in itself, he does seem to describe it as a means toward that end. This is my view as well. Nationalism may not be the highest step on the ladder, but it's a necessary step on the ladder, without which the highest rung can never be reached. So let's take a look at the rungs of the ladder. I think it's obvious that the individual is the ground level, and I consider it ironic that radical leftists accuse right-wing libertarians of promoting a kind of atomistic individualism, when I think I can demonstrate that the reverse is the case. It's the modern radical left which seeks to destroy all of the rungs on the ladder, which threatens to reduce humanity to a state of atomistic individualism, where individuals are united only by their shared sense of enslavement to their global state masters. The first rung on the ladder is the nuclear family. This is the most basic unit of social cohesion, which brings the individual into a sense of himself as something like a cell in a larger body. And yet, in a healthy family, the individual does not lose his sense of himself as an individual. In a healthy family, each family member respects and loves each family member as an individual with a unique identity. Only once the individual has come to see himself as a member of a family can he come to see himself as a member of a community. A community is a community of families. A community is an extended family. Without the family, there is no community. In the same way, without the local community, there is no nation. Without nations, there is no internationalism. How can the individual, who has never even learned to see himself as part of a family or community, come to see himself as part of some universal abstraction called humanity? At an even more fundamental level, how can an individual who has no sense of himself as an individual ever be expected to value other people as individuals? And so these radical left-wing globalists are completely misguided. They ignorantly believe that if they destroy racial identity, national identity, family identity, and individual identity, that individuals will magically view themselves as a part of some universal human family. In reality, this goal can only be achieved by climbing Weishaupt's metaphorical ladder. If you want to promote the ideal of the universal brotherhood of man, you must begin by promoting family values. Encourage the individual to feel love and a sense of duty toward his parents and his brothers and sisters. Verse 4 in the Golden Verses of Pythagoras encourages men to honor their parents and those most nearly related to them. Pythagoras certainly did not promote the abolition of the family, and no one who does can call himself a Pythagorean. And yet it also seems clear to me that Pythagoras believed in the ideal of the universal brotherhood of man. And so it's impossible that he considered these two things to be in conflict with one another. And so I'm echoing the view of the Pythagoreans and the Illuminati when I say that the nuclear family is the basic unit of social cohesion, and that those who wish to promote the ideal of a universal brotherhood of man must begin by defending traditional family values. And at the very core of this is the belief in the value of the individual. Identity begins with the individual. The individual must have a sense of individual identity first, before that sense of identity can be extended to include his family, his community, his nation, his race, and ultimately his entire species. State force is unnecessary in a healthy society. An individual helps his family members when they're in need because he loves them and has a sense of himself as having a shared identity with them. He loves them as he loves himself. And obviously, it's necessary to love yourself first. What good does it do to love others as you love yourself if you don't love yourself? So again, individualism must come first. In the same way that members of a family help other family members, those families who come together as a community will voluntarily assist other families within their community who are in need. No state force is necessary. And communities who see themselves as sharing a common national identity will also come together to help one another. In the same way, nations can come together and see themselves as having a common racial identity, and the different races can find a shared sense of identity as part of the human species. If you want to take it even further, humans can come to see themselves as a part of an even larger family, which includes other animals and even plant life. But I don't believe that a person can be led to care about saving the rainforest or the whales if he doesn't even care about humanity. And I don't believe that a person who doesn't even care about the survival of his race can possibly care about the survival of the human species. And a man who doesn't care about serving his local community won't care if his nation crumbles. And a man who doesn't care about his own aging parents or his own children certainly won't care about the children or aging parents of others in his community. He won't voluntarily give money to help them. State force will be necessary. And this is why people who are against the concept of individual identity, familial identity, national identity, and racial identity always want a bigger and more powerful state. The world they advocate is held together by violence, rather than love. They love the state because the state is violent. They love violence. They desire power. They desire control. They despise freedom, and they despise love. For them, love is evil. But like I said earlier, they are a mutation. They are the expression of a contradiction. It's important to understand that the error they promote is a distortion of an insight that revealed itself to radical Enlightenment thinkers. An excess of nationalism, of the sort that causes one nation to desire to act aggressively toward other nations, is certainly harmful. But it doesn't follow from this that we must abolish any sense of nationalism whatsoever. This is merely a reactionary movement toward the opposite extreme. My pro-nationalist views are very much in line with authentic Illuminism, in seeing nationalism as a rung on the ladder that leads the individual toward a sense of being a part of the universal human family. And my views are very much in alignment with the modern Illuminati order, which states on their website, illuminatiorderoto.com, that all the races of peoples will only have peace when they have true self-determination and voluntary associations from their own sovereign ancestral homelands. I absolutely believe in a kind of internationalism, but I promote a spirit of internationalism that respects national identity. I don't see individual identity, family identity, national identity, and racial identity as barriers to a more universal human identity. I see them as steps on a ladder that lead toward it. And those who seek to destroy these lower rungs are ignorantly sabotaging the very goals they think they're working toward. I think I'll end there. Please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, and support my channel by making a donation through my website at illuminatispythagoras.com. I'll see you next time. Peace.